Welcome to Le Circuit Mont Tremblant, race number 2 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup. Hello everyone, I'm Brian McGorman. With me is Pat Gonzalez. We are just north of Montreal in the heart of the Laurentian Mountains at Pat, what is one of Canada's most historic racing facilities.
It really is that, Brian, but you know, all of the attention here this weekend is on the first stop here for the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup drivers at Mont Tremblant, and of course, as you said, our second race in the series. But they'll race 4 times here this year in the series, and this is a critical stop for the drivers because you've got to realize there's almost $500,000 on the line this year for the drivers. Years ago, it was drivers like Sterling Moss, Chris Amon, and Dan Gurney that brought the racing crowds here to Mont Tremblant. They race these old Can-Am style cars, and they've also raced Formula One and Indy cars here back in the late 60s and early 70s. The track and the beautiful surroundings haven't really changed much in the 20 years since this field awaited the start of their race. We talked about the prize money for today's Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup. That's one of the things that has changed. This bump and grind start back in 1966 was for only a fraction of what the total purse is in this year's series. That doesn't mean that the racing was any less intense. And when Mario Andretti won the IndyCar race here in 67 and 68, his average speed was 96 miles per hour, just 4 miles an hour faster than today's production-based Porsche 944 turbos.
There's another interesting aspect here, too. Le Circuit Mont Tremblant is the Canadian home of the Jim Russell Racing School. And earlier, we took a close-up look at the school's operations. The garages are snuggled in the infield of Le Circuit. Students start with textbook theory and then quickly graduate to in-car sessions in these Formula 2000 training cars. Each is identically prepared, and Jim Russell instructors constantly monitor the progress of the racing students. Danny Sullivan and the late Gilles Villeneuve are 2 of the drivers who got their start here at the Jim Russell School at Le Circuit.
Yesterday's greats have both learned and raced here. Today, Canada's current crop of driving superstars, the drivers of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup, will line up for race number 2. The season opener was at Mosport Park. 1987 champion Richard Spinard showing the rest of the field nothing but superb driving skills. He took the lead on the second lap from Jacques Villeneuve and never looked back, taking an impressive win. Richard Laporte finished second, a few car lengths back, and David Tennyson won the drag race to the checker over Uli Bieri to finish third.
And race number 2 is going to be just as exciting, so stay with us. We'll be back with the start of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup from Le Circuit at Mont Tremblant in just a moment.
Welcome back to Mont Tremblant, the second round of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup. The cars have moved up to the pre-grid area, getting set for their pace lap. The surprise of qualifying has been David Tennyson. He stole the pole position away from Richard Laporte in the very last qualifying session. So the youngest driver, Tennyson, starts at the front, while the senior driver, Jacques Bienvenu, will be right in the back. Jacques had problems in qualifying and was not able to turn in an official qualifying time. Now let's go to Brian McGorman with the starting grid.
On row number 1, it's David Tennyson in the Denon Auto Audio car. Richard Laporte is on the outside of the front row. Both drivers were on the podium in race 1. Row 2 is Richard Spinard, the race number 1 winner, and Rick Bai is 4th in the Agincourt Reebok Porsche. And row 3 is a bit of a surprise. Chris Gleason will have it all to himself, as Ludwig Heimrath was pushed to the back of the grid for a technical infraction. Jacques Leliev and Bill Adam make up row 4. Row 5 is Larry Caruso and Uli Bieri. Norman Boyer and David Seabrook are in row 6. Row 7 is Mike Williamson and Ted Powell. Don Fuller and Len Campbell are row 8. Row 9 is Peter Overing and Marc Canton. Ludwig Heimrath and Jacques Bienvenu are in row 10.
The cars have cleared Namaro coming onto the pit straightaway looking for the green flag. Tennyson in the blue car, Laporte in the white and yellow automobile. As they have got a green, we're racing at Mont Tremblant. David Tennyson pulls ahead of Laporte, who will try him up to the outside. Here comes Richard Spinard into turn 1. Spinard side by side, and he'll take over the second place position. Just moving ahead of Richard Laporte from the onboard camera aboard Rick Bai's Reebok Porsche. You could see the hot action on this opening lap. It is Tennyson, Spinard, Laporte, then Rick Bai, followed by his teammate Chris Gleason. There's Jacques Bienvenu as he continues to charge up through the pack as he closes on the number 35 car there. That's the Fujifilm Porsche of Ted Powell. And here is Bienvenu pulling up alongside. He'll pick up the position. Back with the leaders, Tennyson continues just ahead of Spinard, who has Laporte all over him for that second place position. Then it is Rick Bai in 4th. Chris Gleason runs back in the 5th place position.
I don't know if there's any team rules involved, but it looks like Gleason is trying to get past Bai.
Chris Gleason moves down to the inside from the onboard camera. Chris Gleason has taken over that fourth place position. Beautiful pass under braking as he moves ahead of Rick By, who now runs back in the fifth place position. Up the straightaway they'll go. They'll try to pick up the draft here over the crest of the hill. It is still Tennyson there in the blue car, followed by Spinard, Laporte, the new fourth place driver, Chris Gleason, and then it is Rick By running back in the fifth place spot. Bill Adam is sixth, and there is Jacques Bienvenu, number 89. He is all over David Seabrook as they come off the end of the back straightaway. Jacques has climbed past 7 drivers on this opening lap. He's up into the 12th place spot, and he closes here on Seabrook as they come under the bridge. Some incredibly close racing here in this opening lap. And where it is, one of the drivers putting a wheel off into the grass. It is Tennyson leading through Namuro. Spinard, though, has closed it back up. Laporte in third, Gleason fourth. Rick By runs back in fifth.
David Tennyson really showing a lot of poise leading this train of more experienced drivers.
David has been brilliant here. He qualified on the pole in the last race at the end of last season and had a great qualifying effort here.
And now Bienvenu, who is looking very strong. And earlier, DICOM crew chief Andre Gadet told us what happened in their qualifying effort.
It's just that this car being stored, transmission, wheel bearings, and finally in the race in Mosport, while we were catching in second position Spinard, rear wheel bearing let go. And this weekend here, we had problems with the cylinder head. One valve went down. So now I just repaired it, and I hope I'm going to be able to catch all the other guys this morning.
Well, Gadet's wishes have become a reality as Bienvenu is locked in a ferocious battle here for the ninth place position. He pulls alongside of the 71 car of Larry Caruso, and Bienvenu now has taken over the ninth place position.
You look at the leaderboard and you see Tennyson still leading the way, but you mentioned it. It's the battle down at the bottom. The guys that started in the last spots, Bienvenu and Heimrath, have now moved up to 9th and 10th place.
Outstanding drive for both Bienvenu and Ludwig Heimrath as they've carved their way through the field. In the back hairpin, it is Tennyson still holding off Richard Spinard, and then it is Laporte. And right now you can see that both Tennyson and Spinard are starting to open up some distance on the third place car of Laporte, and then it is Gleason and Rick By in that order. Bill Adam runs back in the sixth place position. He is not all that far back. David Tennyson has stretched out the lead on Richard Spinard, but as they come through the right and left-hand turns here, Spinard closing it back up. You're with the leader, Tennyson, as he comes uphill under the bridge. Earlier, I had a chance to ask David Tennyson about his experiences at Le Mans this year.
It's given me a lot of driving experience, more driving experience. It's added to the amount of starts that I've done. Driving with drivers from Sweden and France and Germany, and as well Richard and Scott Goodyear. I just think it's added to my overall experience, and as I get more, I get better and better.
And that better and better has translated itself into this battle between Tennyson and Spinard, breaking away from the rest of the pack.
They have clearly opened it up on the third and fourth place battles. There is number 3, Bill Adam, coming underneath of Rick By. He'll take over the fifth place position. Rick By, you're on board with the Reebok Porsche driver as he has lost that fifth place position. Rick By, who ran up as high as fourth on the opening lap, now being pushed back into the sixth place position by a hard-charging Bill Adam. Tennyson, the leader. Then Spinard. They have definitely separated themselves from the rest of the field. Laporte holds on a third. There is Gleason aboard the 75 car in the fourth place position. Then Bill Adam followed by Rick By. So we've got a great four-way battle now going on for the third place position.
You're inside the 7-Up guest car now, this week being driven by Don Fuller, and for the first time today we are seeing raindrops as the weather changes here. Now Fuller's had a problem with his exhaust system that's also been keeping him back.
Don Fuller running about a half a lap back of the leaders. That exhaust system will be of concern. You don't want that piece coming off of the car and hitting the windshield of one of the other drivers out there. So if he does not come onto pit road, he will probably get the black and orange meatball flag. There's the battle for third. Laporte still over Gleason. There is the number 3 Toshiba Porsche of Bill Adam running in fifth, and then Rick By in the Reebok Porsche. Here comes Bill Adam side by side with Gleason. He'll take over the fourth place position. That is just horsepower as Bill Adam got a good drive coming out of the far hairpin. And here is Don Fuller. He comes out of pit road.
Fuller has been meatballed. The officials deciding that exhaust dragging isn't safe, so now he's going into the pits for repairs. Let's see if we can listen in from our onboard Sony Handycam.
Just an exhaust hanger. We'll try and get you out. You won't even lose a position.
Some very close racing further in the pack. This is the battle for 11th between number 71, Larry Caruso, and 86, Norman Boyer in the red car as they continue to just hammer at each other. There's the red and yellow slippery track flag being displayed to the drivers. The rain's starting to fall a little bit harder now. The leaders still Tennyson and Spinard. It has been this way since the opening lap, and David Tennyson has had a brilliant drive so far, holding off the veteran Richard Spinard. But now Spinard, as the rain gets a little bit harder, starting to mount a challenge.
You can't see it from the shot inside Tennyson's car, but Spinard has now moved right up alongside him.
Richard Spinard right there with David Tennyson, and Spinard goes into the lead. Richard Spinard has put the Motormaster Porsche out in front for the first time. Here is the replay of the pass. He gets inside of Tennyson going into the far hairpin, and he moves just a car length ahead.
The rain is really coming down now so hard, in fact, they are stopping the race. It is unsafe to continue.
The red flag out at the start-finish line, black flags out elsewhere around the circuit here at Mont Tremblant. The officials will bring the cars onto pit road, and then we'll probably have to have some kind of a restart to this race.
The weather changes so quickly here, from sunshine to blue skies to rain. The crews appear to be scrambling around. Let's go down to pit road now with Pat.
You can see behind me a very busy pit lane here at Mont Tremblant. There's still a light rain falling, although there's some blue skies off in the distance. As the drivers came in here, they had to make a very critical decision, whether to change to the treaded Pirelli P0s or stay with the slicks. Most of the teams have gone to the treaded tires. Other teams might be gambling that it will dry up here before the start of the race, and they will have the advantage running on the slick tires.
We'll be back with the restart of race number 2 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series from Mont Tremblant right after this. Welcome back to the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series, race number 2 from Mont Tremblant, Quebec.
Moments ago, the cars lined up once again for a restart, but look what's happened. This race was stopped because of a torrential downpour, and now it's sunshine and blue skies, although the track is still very, very wet. Almost all of the teams took advantage of the delay to switch to the treaded Pirelli P0 tires. There were 2 drivers who did not change to the treaded tires. Rick By and Chris Gleason are out there on slicks. The question now, with the sunshine out here at Mont Tremblant, will the track in fact dry up once we go back to racing?
You can tell when you look at the fans, they have put their umbrellas away and are set for racing. And here's the way they'll start. The top 10 for the restart has David Tennyson leading the pack just behind the pace car. Now, he had been passed by Richard Spinard just before the red flag, but the officials have reverted back to the positions of the last complete lap, so Spinard is back in second.
The field winding their way through Namuro. The pace car will pull on a pit road, and they'll be looking for a green as they come onto the start-finish straightaway. The field being strung out just a little bit. We've got a green flag, and Tennyson charges into the lead. Spinard also getting off quickly, and into turn 1, it'll be Tennyson, Spinard, and here's Bill Adam inside of Laporte. Bill Adam will take over that third-place position with a beautiful pass going inside of Richard Laporte. You're with Rick By as he runs back in the 6th-place position in the Reebok Porsche, and you can see the drivers testing the traction here on this opening lap of the restart. Tennyson, Spinard, Bill Adam, then Laporte, and then the 2 teammates. Chris Gleason just ahead of Rick By.
Rick By and Gleason are the only 2 drivers on slicks. They are hoping the rain holds off and the track dries, and they can stay with the leaders or close enough to them to make a move once the track does dry out.
The number 11 car of Len Campbell going through. There's a battle between Peter Overing and Mark Canton. We're back with the leaders as Tennyson now coming under pressure from Spinard, who takes a wide outside line. You can see patches of dryness starting to show in the back hairpin. Number 3, Bill Adam, holds on to that 3rd-place position, but he has Richard Laporte all over him. David Tennyson leads the freight train over the top of the hill. It is Tennyson by just a car length over Spinard. You can see the drivers moving left and right to avoid the spray and get some proper visibility as they come through that turn. Rick By number 8, and there goes Bienvenu right off the racetrack. Jacques was running in 7th. He'll lose at least a couple of positions. Jacques Bienvenu sliding off the racetrack.
While we were paying attention to Jacques, look what happened, Pat. Tennyson is passed by Richard Spinard.
Spinard, who was right with them there on the restart. You can see Spinard getting a little bit sideways. The track is drying out, but there's still a lot of dampness still out there. And there you can see it as they come up in Enamaro. It is Spinard, your leader. And here is Laporte. He is all over Tennyson coming up in Enamaro. Spinard goes wide. Tennyson closes right up on him. And the three drivers locked together in a tremendous battle for the lead. And there you can see more of the dry racetrack starting to show. Spinard, your leader. Tennyson in second. Laporte runs in third, and a bit of a gap back to the fourth place driver, and that is Bill Adam in that black and white Toshiba number 3 car. You're on board with Rick Bye. He pulls up alongside. Rick Bye on the slick tires will now wrestle the fourth place position away from Bill Adam. So as the track dries, Rick Bye starts to pick up the pace, and he's climbed up into fourth. Here is Tennyson and Laporte side by side for second. Richard Laporte going right after David Tennyson, and Rick Bye has the best seat in the house to watch the action from the onboard Sony Handycam. And now Rick Bye closes on the front-running 3 drivers. He is right on the rear bumper. The umbrellas are out, but that is for the sunshine, not for the rain that we had earlier. Richard Spinard, your leader. Tennyson in second. Here is Laporte on the inside, and Rick Bye going right after those 2 drivers. They're again side by side as they head up the back straightaway. Rick Bye into Reebok Porsche is all over Richard Laporte. It's going to be 3 wide at the top of the hill. Richard Laporte holds on to that second place position. Tennyson getting forced to the outside. It'll be Spinard first into the turn, and it is, yes, Rick Bye has taken over the third place position. Tennyson, who led earlier, has been pushed back to fourth, and then is the other yellow car there of Chris Gleason. He runs in the 5th place position. So what a wild and woolly restart to this Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup event. Tennyson, who started at the front of the field, has been pushed back into the 4th place position. Richard Laporte challenging Spinard for the lead as they come up in Enamaro. Laporte up to the outside. They're side by side going through Enamaro. And a little bit of bumping there between Spinard and Laporte. They're still running wheel to wheel as they come onto the front straightaway. What a battle between these 2 drivers. And now Rick Bye comes up to make it a 3-way shootout for the lead here at Mont Tremblant. But Spinard manages to hold on, and here is on the inside. Rick Bye in the Reebok Porsche will take over second. Oh, Tennyson gets his car right out of shape, gathers it back up, and will continue. But a scary moment there for David Tennyson. He still runs in the 4th place position. No, he doesn't. He's been pushed back into 5th now by number 75 there, Chris Gleason, as Gleason, also running on slick tires, has taken over the 4th place position.
Here's Don Fuller after having that exhaust problem repaired. Fuller, a journalist, writes for many publications, including Motor Trend magazine, and has driven a lot of cars, both race cars and street cars. I asked him earlier what it was like to drive the Turbo 944.
Well, this is it's a pretty demanding, challenging car. I mean, it's a good, honest, hard driving, fast car, but it asks a lot of you. It doesn't let you off easy. And, you know, you have to get involved with it, put in some participation, and get down and work with it. But if you do that, it rewards you with a good payback on its side of the deal. It holds up its end of the deal.
Richard Spinard leading the front runners into the back hairpin. Rick Bye is all over him. Remember, Spinard and Laporte of the trio up front are on the treaded tires. There's Rick Bye on the slicks. He'll get the better drive out of that hairpin and take the lead going up the back straightaway. So it's Rick Bye into the lead. Spinard in second. Laporte runs third. There's a lot more water here at the end of that back straightaway, and Spinard is able to close it up just a little bit, but it is still Rick Bye, your leader, Richard Spinard in second, Laporte in the number 5 car, and there's David Tennyson. He has hit the tire wall. Tennyson, who was running up in the 5th place position, hitting the tire wall. Here it is on the replay as he goes through. The car simply loses traction off into the tire walls. He's going to try to get it restarted. It does not look as though the car has suffered that much damage. A little bit of body damage to the left side of the car, and Tennyson will continue, but he has dropped several positions back.
In fact, he's right into the top 10, Pat. As you look at the leaderboard, the way things have changed, Bye, Spinard, Laporte, Gleason, and Heimrath. Then it's Uli Berry, Bill Adam, Jacques Bienvenu, Larry Caruso, and Jacques Leliev.
Rick Bye trying to win his first ever Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup event. Contact between Spinard and Laporte for second place. Those 2 drivers have been going at it throughout this race. Spinard into second, Laporte right behind him. Here's your leader, Rick Bye, as he brings the Reebok Porsche up in Enamaro with a commanding lead. Richard Laporte has taken over that second place position. Here's Spinard taking a run at Laporte. Laporte gets into a big slide up onto the tire walls. He rolls the car right over. Richard appears to be okay. Steam coming from the engine compartment, and I think that'll be it for him. Chris Gleason now moves up to challenge Richard Spenard for second. Gleason goes through into the number 2 spot.
Pat, there was more involved in that Laporte crash than we originally saw. Let's go back and look at the replay, and you'll see that right behind, the two cars come together. That's Bienvenu and Adam, and they tangle. Both get sideways and off the track, while Jacques Leliev in the 16 car, the red one, is able to slide on through.
Bill Adam and Jacques Bienvenu now have continued, although losing a few positions, some body damage to both of those cars. There is a very bitterly disappointed Richard Laporte. After qualifying and racing here so well at Mont Tremblant, he's become a spectator.
And as Laporte watches, out on the track, Rick Bai is the leader, Chris Gleason is second, and Richard Spenard third. We'll be back with the finish of race number 2 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series from Mont Tremblant, Quebec, right after this. Welcome back to Le Circuit for race number 2 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. We're winding this one down. Here's Bill Adam, now still running in the top 10, despite tangling with Jacques Bienvenu just moments ago, when each driver was trying to avoid the Richard Laporte crash in Namuro.
Jacques Bienvenu aboard the Dicom Express Porsche. That blue smoke coming from the car is the fender rubbing on the tire, the fender being pushed down onto the tire as a result of the get-together with Bill Adam. Rick Bai, the leader, up into Namuro. You can see the racetrack is just about 95% dry. Second place driver Chris Gleason, number 75, goes through. Both of those drivers again running on the slick tires, and there is 1 lap to go. The indication from the flagman at the start-finish line. Chris Gleason goes through in the number 2 spot. The new third place driver in the red car is Uli Bieri, who has moved up into that third place position here late in the race. Then Ludwig Heimrath, who has had a brilliant drive here at Mont Tremblant. He started in the back along with Jacques Bienvenu, and then it is Richard Spenard in the 5th place position. First, second, and third pretty much decided now with less than a lap to go. Spenard all over the veteran Ludwig Heimrath for that 4th place position. There you can see the racing line completely dry through this section of the racetrack. Off that racing line, it's still a little bit damp. Richard Spenard to within a car length of Ludwig Heimrath. And Spenard trying to pull off the pass here with less than a lap to go. Up front, it is all Rick Bai. Here is that battle for 4th into the far hairpin. They're about to head up the back straightaway. Spenard is right there. He'll try to draft him and perhaps make the move as they come over top of the hill. Just a couple of car lengths separating the two drivers, about a half a lap to go. Heimrath, in fact, opening up a little bit of distance between himself and Spenard in the red car as they brake, but now Spenard into the turn, under braking, is able to gather up some of that advantage. Spenard looks to the inside of Heimrath, and Heimrath shuts the door. Here is the leader, Rick Bai, up into Namuro now for the final time aboard the Reebok Porsche. This is going to be his first ever Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup win. He's out of the final turn, the checkered flag out at the line, and Rick Bai has won it here at Mont Tremblant.
His teammate Chris Gleason comes through for second, the only 2 cars running on slicks after that rain delay. And Uli Bieri will hang on for 3rd place.
That race for 4th place out of the final turn, and it'll be Ludwig Heimrath holding off Richard Spenard. Spenard gave it all he could on that last lap, was not able to get around Heimrath.
The story of this race may be the crashes. Tennyson led, so did Laporte for a short time, and here's what happened to that story. Richard Spenard, Bill Adams, so it wasn't just the slicks. Everyone who had a shot at it also had some damage or an incident to set them back. Rick Bai with his first win ever. He's been with this series since the beginning. Chris Gleason, his best finish ever. Uli Bieri came in 3rd. Larry Caruso in 6th place. That's his best finish. But the story, Rick Bai. And let's go down to Pat with our happy winner.
Rick Bai, congratulations. Who finally made a decision to stay with the slick tires after the rains?
When I came in, I knew we I had to look at the sky and to look at our budget and realize we had no rain tires mounted, so I wish I could say I was a wizard, but we had no choice.
So you had to go with the slicks regardless of what?
That was it. We had no choice. We didn't have any tires mounted. We were counting on the sun shining all weekend. We have 2 sets of wheels. We had them both mounted up with slicks, and so there you go. We had no choice.
An amazing story. Join us next time for more excitement. We'll be right back here for round 3 of the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series. For Pat Gonzalez, I'm Brian McGorman. Good afternoon.